Welcome to Linking into Sales, the social selling podcast with Linking into Sales. I'm Martin Brossman.
I'm Greg Hyer.
And I'm Elyse Archer.
And we've got an exciting show today with two guests that also have an outstanding podcast show and looking forward to it. And but we have a little news too, don't we?
Actually do have news. So let's run right into it. So a couple things that are happening. LinkedIn actually published a post about the 10 most overused words to avoid in 2017. We'll put a link to the show notes. Look for episode 107 to get that. But basically, I wanted to kind of highlight four words basically that you need to think about removing from your profile. One, specialized.
Oh.
Yes, actually, and I think this is one of those words that kind of picked up, especially after 2008. With the economic crash and all that stuff, everyone wanted to specialize in one particular thing. I specialize in sales. I specialize in marketing, or within marketing, it would be like I specialize in social media. That's all I do is just social media. So now, actually, someone actually wrote an article that talked about how you need to be more of a generalist, where you're actually more well-rounded, because that's actually how you're supposed to come out of college, right? Anyways, all right. Next word, experienced. Man, if you have to describe yourself as being experienced, I think we have some issues.
Aren't. No.
Well, so experience, don't need it inside your profile. Another one is excellent. If you want to describe yourself, hey, Elyse, would you describe yourself as an excellent person in your LinkedIn profile?
I would describe myself as most excellent, but not anymore, apparently. What would a substitute be? What should be?
That's a good question.
I don't know.
We're just trying to create confusion here.
That's right.
I'm going to just jump in. These are just most overused words. I don't want people neurotically having to whack up their LinkedIn or suffer at night. But it is important to know what are the most overused words. So if you find something else that describes it, hit another one.
Yeah, so the last one I want to point out is expert.
Expert.
Now, this one is like one of those that really hits a nerve, especially within the sales and marketing community. You have influencers out there who call themselves experts. You have social media experts out there. You have marketing experts out there. You'll rarely ever hear me kind of refer to myself as an expert, because technically, by definition, your community is what calls you an expert. So for you to self-proclaim yourself as an expert, well, that's not a good idea. So we don't recommend doing that. Okay, what do you think? I
just think there's so many self-proclaimed wizard experts and everything else. It's kind of diluted the game.
It has.
It's sort of a red flag of being suspicious. There's substance behind it, not a puddle that's a half an inch deep.
All right. So next piece of news real quick is that Google starts to buy some Twitter assets. So is this the end of Twitter, or is this just a cash infusion to keep them floating along for a little bit more? But basically, Google had announced back on January 18th that they had acquired some assets from Twitter, some applications that they have one's called Fabric. There's Cashlytics, Answers, Digits, Fastlane. Some of these are program software developer tools and things like that. But basically, Google announced that they were acquiring several of these assets from Twitter. Most notably was Fabric, because it's a mobile application development platform that a lot of folks are using. So it looks like Twitter has a little bit more cash in order to keep on going. They didn't disclose what the amount was, but still, if you're in social selling, you should still be using Twitter.
Yes, and of course they're going to do. We'll talk a little bit about some changes they're doing to the updates of news too.
Mm-hmm. All right,
they'll come down.
All right, so that's what I got for social selling news today. Why don't we talk about
our sponsor, which is socialselling.training, a fantastic resource in how to learn social selling online, the fundamentals, LinkedIn profiles, and setting up Twitter so they don't look like something you threw together or a lame data sheet, or you don't even have a summary, you haven't customized your URL, or something else that just makes it so boring people won't want to talk to you.
Well, not only that, you'll also learn things like, what is social proximity?
Right.
And how does that affect how you go out there and do social selling? What about building social capital, right? Mm-hmm. And what does that mean? Those sort of things we're going to actually cover in a course that will be published within the first couple weeks of February. Mm-hmm. We said we'd have it ready for January, but unfortunately, we're just here to admit that we had some extra research we needed to do to make sure that this was exceptional. So we're taking just a couple extra weeks to make sure it is exceptional, and you will have it out there. We're also going to be updating the LinkedIn profile course. For those of you who are listening that had already got that course, last year, but when it was free. We're actually going to be updating that because LinkedIn has already started rolling out the new profiles. You've probably already seen it. You're probably playing around and testing with it. And matter of fact, we got a question that from a listener that we're going to answer at the end of the show as part of our social selling tips. So stick around for that. And also be on the lookout for the new updated course coming out for LinkedIn coming out in February.
Yep, it's excellent. I was working on some of it this afternoon. So really good stuff.
All right. So
I want to add one more thing.
Yeah,
at the end of it, you get a certificate to put on LinkedIn, and there really aren't many programs like this, especially in social selling, so you can enhance your career.
Yeah.
And so that's worth it.
Absolutely. I think so. So, all right, Elyse, let's get to our guests because I hear them kind of fidgeting in the back and they're like, when do we go? When do we go? When do we go? So go ahead and tell us about it.
That might have been
Tell us
her dog wanting to go out. Yeah, I don't know. Go ahead, Elyse. It's over to you.
All the time. Well, actually, before I introduce the guests, guys, I'm going to make you wait one more second. I want to introduce one other special guest on our show today. If you guys are watching, you will see it is Greg's amazing beard, new beard that he has grown. So we have special request in from Greg for beard oil for any of the fans out there who have beards.
Welcome to the
Greg,
club.
don't kill me. But yes, so we actually have 2 dueling beards on the show today because one of our guests is also rocking an amazing beard. So guys, I am excited for the 2 guests we have on the show today. These guys are both true thought leaders in the sales acceleration space. And so for any of you out there who listen to the Sales Acceleration Podcast, you're already going to know these guys. We've got Gabe Larsen and Steve Eror Jr., right, from InsideSales.com.
We're talking about round of applause. Thank you. Hold your applause till the end, please.
And one thing that I thought was pretty cool about you guys is One Page CRM recently put out a report of the top sales podcasts that all sales professionals should listen to. And guess who is at the top of the list, even above Gary Vee?
Yeah, Gary actually contacted us about
he keeps
that
asking
one.
for tips.
Yeah,
he keeps calling me.
I don't know why he keeps calling, but I don't know, Elyse, if they were actually ordering those by number.
Yes, they were. Yes, absolutely.
I think it was alphatical or well, it couldn't have been alphabetical.
No. Yeah, because we were right after Gary.
We were right after it, so we were. So it must be the 3 most important were at the top.
That's right.
Sure.
Yeah, I tried to get Gary Vee to come on to talk to him about how do you feel about being number 3, but he just wouldn't do it. So we'll see.
I wonder why.
We're calling out Gary Vee.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, that's embarrassing. But it's fun while it lasts. It was fun while it lasted. It was a couple of months.
Yep.
Well, we really appreciate you letting us join the show.
Absolutely.
Yeah, guys, we're excited to have you on. So I would love if you guys could share just a little bit about yourselves, what you do, maybe on the podcast and at InsideSales.com. And then I told you like 2 minutes before we went live that I wanted to spread the love of sharing a random fact about yourselves because you guys had me do this when I was on your show a couple weeks ago.
Payback. All right, Steve, why don't you start, man? Why don't you start?
Yeah, so I've been in inside sales for about 2 years. I come from my background's in financial services and decided I wanted to get to know these people I live with called my family. So left that industry and went and started working in technology and doing podcasts a little bit here and there for probably 5 years. And then when the opportunity came to work with Gabe on this podcast, I jumped at it. So yeah, we've been doing it since June.
Who knows? But it's been fun.
Yeah, it's been a blast.
What's your one unique thing, man? Let's get to the good stuff.
The good stuff.
We call it one unique aspect.
Yeah,
our
OUA.
But
Yep. I lived near a colony of zombies. Like real zombies.
Wow.
Yeah, for about
How is that possible?
Yeah.
So
honestly, it's a story you don't care to listen to. So anyways, so I'm Gabe Larsen.
There's a book about it called Serpent and the Rainbow. They're in Haiti. Real zombies, not like Walking Dead, but yeah.
All right.
Interesting. We'll put a link in the show
Top
notes.
Yeah, that's a tough one to compete with. Might have to go deeper into my treasure chest of OUAs.
Well, you're used to second place.
Says the man with the beard that is not as good as the other guy's beard. You know?
I don't know about that.
I know about that. Go ahead.
That's a good beard.
Anyway, so I'm Gabe. It's great to be on. Man, the podcasting thing is new for us, but we've loved it. Been doing it, as Steve said, for the last 6 months. Started my career at Goldman Sachs, Accenture. Been at Inside Sales 3 years. I run what we call Inside Sales Lab. So it is our best practice and research. So if you haven't seen, you should go check out InsideSales.com. Once a month, Labs will produce a report on gal, anything from cadence strategies to social selling to pipeline management. We got a great pipeline management report coming out here soon. And so we wanted to start sharing the love. We've got a great database of prospects and clients. And so we thought, why not get out and do podcasting? So we've been having a blast doing it. Yeah. So my one unique aspect is I almost died golfing. Golfing.
Lightning or drinking? Drowning.
Oh. Maybe while I was drinking. It was drowning. Anyway, so that's us.
And we can stop the show right there. We've got zombies. We've got death while golfing. Like, this is actually pretty entertaining.
Sounds like an episode of Walking Dead. That's right.
Yeah, you'll have to look up. My hobby is shooting with Zombie Shooters Associations. You'll look it up. I'll let you figure it out later.
Yeah, you're not making that up either.
No, he's not.
You're not making that up. All right. So before we go down a bad path of zombies and shooting things, Gabe, I actually wanted to ask you a question. You wrote an article last year, August of 2016, called 3 Steps to Building Social Selling into Your Cadence Strategy. And in the intro, you mentioned something that was interesting to me. You mentioned this conversation that you had with a sales leader who said that she felt like her whole sales team was just turning into marketers, which I think is a really interesting perspective on what can happen when maybe social selling goes awry. So I wanted to just get some insight from you guys on, there seems to be a really thin line between effectively doing social selling and really just turning into like a one-man marketing team. So how do you know when you've crossed over that line as a social seller?
Yeah, I think one of the things we see, I'm on the road a decent amount when we're doing consulting, and anytime you become siloed, anytime you think you should just be doing one thing and only that one thing, I think that's probably a time to take a step back and reflect and begin testing. We're a big believer in the model or the science of selling, which is testing. And so if you're serious about optimizing an outreach strategy or an engagement strategy, as long as you're mixing different methodologies, different modalities, phone, email, social, and you're seeing which ones work with different audiences, that's where we've typically found the most success. And so I'm a big believer that salespeople should think like marketers. But if you just rely on email, if you just rely on social and you never dare to pick up the phone, you just go back and forth, then you get into trouble. So when we coach people on getting social, and that's the article you're referring to, getting social into a cadence strategy, you got to get to that call to action. And that typically means you've got to get to more aggressive communication. And therefore, I do have to pick up the phone. I can't be reliant on just one piece.
Yeah, I think social, for example, it's to use our golf. Keep going with the golf thing. That's one club in the bag.
Are you a golfer?
I golf a little.
Yeah,
not that good.
We'll
I've never died.
He talks a big game sometimes, you guys, but he's not.
No, I'm not much. Yeah, I golf, but I think we've had people, or I've known people in sales who said, "Well, I'm a social seller, and that's what I do." And I think that you can't limit yourself to that. You got to have the conversation. And I think that a marketer does a really good service. They're pitching stuff out there. They're throwing stuff out there to the world, saying, "Hey, look at this, read this. Come talk to us if you're interested." Where I think that in sales, you do that one next step, which is, here's something that we're putting out there that I think applies to you. Come talk to me and let's talk to you specifically. So it's that next step that I think makes a difference.
Love it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So it's like that really fine line of.
It is a fine line.
Sure that it's probably a rare skill set these days of being able to have the mind of a marketer while also being sure to be strategic with your message. Mm-hmm. Right? And I think that's part of where some opportunities may open up for salespeople in the future. Now, going back to that article, we can't really mention the article called "The 3 Steps to Building Social Selling into Your Cadence Strategy" without finding out.
Bearing the lead.
Yeah. So enlighten us. What are those 3 steps of building social selling into your cadence strategy?
Yeah. So, again, we are a big believer that you should have social in a good cadence strategy, but we typically go with the 3-step process as you think about integrating. And the first one is commenting. Now, Now, we've used an acronym called LUV, or love. We stole it from kind of Southwest Airlines there, and that's leaving unsolicited validation. So, that's that. I'm a believer that you should start and kind of do the stalking, right? So your first touch should be a like, or potentially a comment, or a share, or something that's less intrusive but gets you kind of on the radar of those people. From there, then I believe you're ready to connect. Now, the connection, and I agree with a lot of stuff you guys have put out and others, in that it should be personalized, or you should have a strategy in connection. And so oftentimes we'll recommend 5 or 10 different strategies to make sure that connection is in the right place. And then from there, once you've got the connection, then you're ready to make that call to action. And that call to action could be a variety of things. I mean, it could be, let's meet in person. It could be, why don't you download or take, digest this piece of content. It could be something smaller as you bridge to more aggressive communication formats. But as you think about a cadence strategy of having some phone calls, having some voice messages, having some emails, getting social in there in a strategic way. And I like the 3 C's: comment, connect, and then call to action. You embed those in different areas in that cadence strategy. I think it's a great way to get a holistic approach.
Yeah, I told the story on the podcast a few times, but there was, when I was doing BDR work, there was someone I wanted to get a hold of, someone I wanted to set an appointment with and connect with. And, from running some podcasts and having some radio shows, I've got a pretty decent Twitter following. And
we talked about this. What does decent mean?
It's decent.
Yeah. Do you want to compare Twitter followings on air? Should we do this?
We should compare Twitter followings now that we've compared beards.
Yeah, let's do it. How many? Oh, you actually have a lot of Twitter.
Yeah, I'm at 6,200.
Yeah,
that's not bad. I got about 5,500 or something.
Yeah, see?
Oh yeah, I've got somewhere around that.
Like you have like 5,000,
5,000, minus 5,000.
5.
The thing is, most of his followers are like Harry Potter lovers and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
No, I'm serious. He does some other podcasts that are just weird stuff. So
yeah, I do weird Harry Potter podcasts. Apparently, which book was first?
What were you saying? I'm sorry.
So back to actually how I was using Twitter.
That's right.
I know I make sure that if there's somebody or account I'm targeting, I follow them on Twitter. And I noticed this guy put out an article. We do a lot with predictive analytics and AI, and he put out an article on predictive analytics in banking. I thought, that's a great article. It actually is really interesting. It has to do with what we do. And so I retweeted it. And then, people at the company picked it up here and they retweeted it. And so suddenly he went from 150 people he sent it out to my 6,500. And then, it just kind of blew up from there. The nice thing was, when I called him the next time, I said, "Hey, this is Steve Eror with Inside Sales." He knew exactly who I was, because we still made that connection. It wasn't just social. I wasn't trying to sell him through Twitter. It was just one club in the bag that made the difference.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Mm-hmm. I like it. Now, I know, Martin and Greg, you guys are teaching cadence strategies and a lot of what you're teaching as well. Is that pretty similar, that 3-step process of comment, connect, and then call to action?
Here we go.
Now we're comparing cadence strategies. I don't know.
Let's see if your cadence is as good as mine.
Good as yours.
No, he's completely wrong. No, I just had to say that. Not all.
As usual. If I had $1 for every time I heard that Gabe was wrong.
That's right. No, one of the things to me is the biggest thing is you need to move forward. One of the words I use is kind of a business courting, and I where it is a pacing along with them, but also I think there's such an important thing as making sure you have the courage to engage. I mean, being upfront that you are in business to add value to them. So there is a cadence, there is a balance to it, and I think the point is people can either get lost in the old school of what I say, bludgeoning until they respond, or they get lost in I'm putting out content, and that's to me more in the marketing area, to the point where they're not going. No one's asking for it. I remember in small towns. I teach a lot in small towns, and somebody said, why did you vote for this person? And they said, because they asked for my vote, and the other person was real nice but never asked for my vote. And I think that's the piece, that at some point taking that initiative. And it's tough because some people are in the, I don't want to do cold calling, so they'll overdo the pushing the content out.
Yeah.
And then there are people like, I don't want to deal with the small moving pieces of courting them in with information, and they won't map out the buyer's journey properly. So one of our ways of putting it is mapping out the buyer's journey and thinking about their convincer strategy in buying and meeting them along the way. But you still need to engage. So I think that was a long answer to it. Greg, you want to add anything to that?
No, I think you definitely got it long.
Did it? Was it long enough?
Was
I
good.
could ramble some more.
You're good. That was really good.
But I like that. I think that's very important in the idea of we got to move it forward.
I think, well, I'll add one small piece.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah,
Right.
Our main philosophy here is that we see social selling as it's about opening, not closing. And I think that's the main thing that we see with social selling and how it's kind of different. And I think that your approach there with your 3 C's addresses that. In the early part of the engagement, it just has to keep on going as well. It goes beyond the sale into retaining and growing that customer as well. So
yeah, we're looking at some new research, and we've not published it, but just to tease it out, and we were asking salespeople about LinkedIn usage, and 70% said they basically are using it all in the top of the pipeline, basically in prospecting. Very few are really finding the way to use that throughout the rest of the funnel, and I think I know LinkedIn's cognizantly aware of that, and I know they're looking at it. I think it can be effective in that, but as you guys are mentioning, that's where a lot of people are using it. I think there's more application down the funnel, but it's different. It's not what comes to mind naturally.
And you have to listen. You have to pay attention. How engaged is that person you're working with? If they're never there, you can't like or share. And I also want to add that you're bringing up another important piece of cross-platform, moving to Twitter and moving to others, and understand them enough to move, because there's so many great contacts I made. I heard an author on the news and then found their Twitter first, less invasive, and then moved from there to talking to them on Twitter and connecting on LinkedIn, then moved from there to interviewing them as a way to build the relationship. So being able to, what you haven't spelled out, but you said in your action, is the importance of cross-platforms. And it takes some work just to get comfortable with that.
Where do you guys see the future of Facebook? I mean, B2B sales, we've obviously been LinkedIn, Twitter, Google's buying Twitter assets. We never know what's going on with Twitter, to be honest. But do you see Facebook as a future, a strong future in B2B sales?
They're supposed to ask the questions, Gabe.
I know I'm running the podcast, but I just wanted to have the conversation. I think it's an interesting as we talk about cross-platform.
It is a great question.
No, we'll answer and then you answer. How's that?
Okay. Yeah, you go first.
I'll go first, and then you can say you're dead wrong like I did. To me, it's going to take a while because you need to slow down. I mean, people are still recovering from the election overwhelm. In fact, Greg had a great quote: "Please take your political rants to Google Plus, not Facebook." Which I love.
Yes, Greg, you win the internet.
Yeah, that's right.
You're my favorite person.
But people want their private space. You need to earn the right to be in that. Now, I'm big on Facebook. If they invite you in, that's entirely different than you intrude there. So I think that's important to understand. Twitter's more open, LinkedIn's more B2B. There's more opening for it. Commenting on a blog's a safer area, YouTube. But now we go to the personal Facebook. That's being invited into their backyard, into the living room. I'm big on them initiating it. So Greg, and then let's hear theirs.
It was kind of funny. I was listening to, there's an influencer, a vlogging influencer out there, Amy, if I can pronounce her last name. She does Sexy Savvy Social, Amy Schmittauer. I'll probably butcher her last name, but she was doing a live stream today on YouTube about her book launch. And I noticed that a friend of mine, not a friend, another influencer in the area, we're sort of friends. We've met a couple times. I saw him commenting in there. So I said, I got to reach out to him. So I hit him up on YouTube. Then I went over to Twitter and I said, hey, Jed, check this out. I'm over here on YouTube watching you too. He engaged with it. And I said I would take and reach out to him on Facebook Messenger because we're friends on Facebook. So that way we can meet up for lunch and see what happens potentially after that for some stuff I'm kind of planning here for this year. And so using multiple platforms is going to happen. But to Martin's point, I think Facebook It really does depend how you use it, and it's going to significantly depend. The salesperson is really going to have to take and examine that user's profile before they decide to engage with them in a sales process on their Facebook profile. I mean, if they're only sharing pictures of their kids or their grandkids or something like that, then it's probably not the right platform for them to start engaging with at that particular point. That doesn't mean that they didn't grow and help develop a relationship on LinkedIn and engaged on Twitter, and eventually that person, that prospect or that customer invited them to connect where they can actually have that closer relationship. But again, it goes back to what we said before, is how social selling is about opening, not closing, where you want to be always trying to create that connection. Instead of the actual ABCs is not always be. What was the one that Joe
always be closing?
Oh well, no, that's it. See, that's Alec Baldwin days. He's doing Trump now. So, so it's
they want their acronym back.
I just watched that movie for the first time. That's why.
It's a great
it's a good movie. Another one I'd add to your list is Boiler Room. I love Boiler Room.
It's good.
But always be connecting, which is what Jill always says. But we say always be creating, which is always be creating those connections, always be creating those opportunities. Create those new meeting opportunities. Create whatever you need to create in order to help you get to the next stage. And if it means that Facebook becomes part of that, then let it become part of it. But I think it's going to happen way further down the funnel, or on the opposite side of the funnel, before a salesperson is really going to be able to engage with. There's going to be a close relationship there.
Now we need to hear yours and let Elyse talk next. So what's your view of Facebook?
Well, you're wrong. So we got to get that off the table. Wrong about what, I'm not sure. But, I believe that Facebook, it's an untapped resource in B2B. In the future, I envision that a sales rep will be the CEO of his territory, that he will have the tools to use retargeting ads on Facebook, that he will be a marketer and a sales rep doing kind of ABM strategies. I see that in the future. With that in mind, I would never recommend someone reaches out on Facebook and as we do on LinkedIn. I think that would be ludicrous. But if you're not partnering with your marketing team and running retargeting ads in B2B, I think you're a fool. And I think as soon as you cross that bound, all of my good prospects, all of my good friends, I now get them on Facebook. It's just a more intimate place. So I feel like once it's almost where I'm starting to use LinkedIn more as my top of funnel and my Facebook more as my bottom. My customers, they're all my Facebook friends if they're a real customer. But I do think this concept of retargeting is part of your ABM strategy. I think you've got to do it. And so either the rep needs to be initiating that or the marketing team does. You got to.
I love the example of bringing them, Facebook is having them over to like a backyard barbecue, right? There's so much personal stuff that we've put on Facebook. Family vacations.
Trump. I hate Trump. I love Trump.
One word.
I'm not going to ask if you like or hate
Trump.
I already know. I've seen your Facebook post.
Yeah, but the fact is, everybody's putting this personal stuff over there, and I think that once you make that initial connection, then solidify it with Facebook. But you've got to have that initial.
It's got to be further down the road. Like you got to be careful.
Like we've talked about texting before, and texting for prospecting. I think that's okay once you've made that connection. But if I were to get some random text message that says, "Hey, we want to talk to you about something," that's a little weird.
Yeah. So it's coming. Texting's coming.
Hear what Elyse wants to say.
I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, we got to go. Okay, yeah, Elyse, your turn.
And then Elyse, I'll let you get it. One of the things that I've seen happen a lot more frequently is private groups are really starting to pick up steam on Facebook, and I think that might be an opportunity to kind of. You do friend somebody, you bring them into a private group, and you start introducing them to everyone else you've invited into that group as well. I think that's because really clever strategy there.
Some of these private groups on Facebook are way more engaging than the ones on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And if we're serious about sharing, I mean, I think they're way more. I think there's just way more activity. I think you're right. I'd love to see that. We've talked about doing one internally ourselves here.
Yeah, I started one just for Amazon Echo, and Greg's in it. Now we're working on something we'll share down the road. But
I'm a big fan of Echo.
Oh, you are? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Alexa, you okay today? Oh, she's quiet right now.
Yeah.
Do you want to plug it?
We have 3 in our house.
That's right.
You have 3?
Oh, yeah.
Let's get the right answer. Let's hear what Elyse says.
Yeah, absolutely. Elyse, go ahead. Excuse me.
I'd like to start by saying that Steve and Gabe, I completely agree with you guys, and Martin and Greg, I just think you guys are flat wrong. So
Mic drop.
podcast.
Don't.
After
It's
the
nice.
show. It is a nice mic. You don't want to drop it. Mine we can drop because it's not. But anyway, I agree with you guys. For me, my approach with Facebook is once somebody's my customer, then I always add them, because one thing that I try to do on a quarterly basis is go in and review all of my customers' Facebook accounts to see what are they enjoying, what are they passionate about,
So powerful.
what are their
Yeah,
hobbies, and then
wonderful.
any of my thank you gifts are always customized to that. So I like to do really customized follow-up that it's like you don't know unless you're connected with them on that personal level. But I think something interesting to look at for the future is, how long is Facebook going to be around, and how long is it going to be a piece of our B2B strategy? I know we may be kind of going off-road here, but you look at the adoption rates, and younger kids aren't adopting it at the same rate. So what do you guys think as far as how long it's even going to be a piece of our strategy before we have to move to something else?
Yeah, well, I mean, you guys go first again. You go ahead.
No, I think we're getting to look at some other things, some non-traditional things. There's another local SaaS company, and heading out to Dreamforce, I sat next to their head of marketing, and she was really focused on Instagram for their company.
Mhm.
And it was really interesting to me. Like I was trying to figure out how that worked, and we talked through it. And I think some of these other non-traditional channels, like an Instagram, might actually be, there's some messages and some things that we can push out that way.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we're ready for that yet. I always look for B2C. I always feel like B2C is 5 years ahead of B2B, and marketing's usually a couple of years ahead of B2B. My mind hasn't passed Facebook, because in the B2B world, we just haven't even scratched the surface. I know a lot of B2C people are starting to ask that question, but if I'm in the B2B world, I'd say you've got at least a couple of years on Facebook, and with the ads and the targeting you can do and all the fun stuff, you just can't do that on Snapchat right now. It's just not a platform that's that friendly. So I'd go all in
Snapchat.
on Facebook, and then let's talk next year and see where we are. I'm not even on Instagram, so I'm biased. Well, I am.
You're just trying to send weird pictures on Snapchat.
So nobody accept a request from Gabe on Snapchat.
Don't. Trust me.
The bottom
No
line.
comment. I plead the fifth.
Well, Greg, I know you did an interview a while back with Carlos Gill, who was kind of talking about the future and what he saw, and he was, clearly he's hot and heavy on Snapchat, because that's his platform, that's what he does. But did he give you a time frame on what he thought would be realistic for how much longer we'll have to use Facebook for B2B marketing, or was he not that amazing at predicting the future?
Something with that one, and then I'll let Grit speak. I'll channel him first. So the the one piece on that is, I think we need to not underestimate Zuckerberg's aggressiveness in whatever it is he'll be there. I don't think Microsoft, I don't think Google, I don't think any of them are playing as hardball as he is. And I'm not 100% fan, actually, but I looked at how aggressively he's converting Instagram to look more like Snapchat just because he couldn't buy it. And so I believe the winner is the most relentless over the smartest. So I think Facebook, we're going to see evolve, or something he's bought to meet the customer more than as one of them. Go ahead, Greg.
Well, I mean, he's also bringing over, I don't know if you guys have been seeing this, but he's also been bringing over some of those Snapchat story features into Facebook Messenger as well. So I'm kind of interested in trying that out a little bit, just see what the effect is. But we did have a conversation, or I had a conversation with Carlos Gill, who is one of the top 50 Snapchat influencers, works over for BMC Software. But he was at Internet Summit in Raleigh in November. So I pulled him aside, got 30 minutes of his time to talk to him about this. And, he and I, we both kind of see eye to eye on this one, is that Snapchat is really good for engaging down, again, at the either lower end of the funnel or on the opposite side. It's dark social, basically. I almost think that you can put Instagram into that category as well, or even Facebook Messenger, where you're not going to be able to take and see what those engagements are. And they're going to be really great for just engaging with customers or with prospects that you are eventually going to convert, but just where that connection's been made between the sales rep and that particular person. So or that prospect or customer. I think there's potential there, but it's got to come from the innovation of the sales rep themselves in order to make that work.
And I want to add one more thing is, someone who's not on Snapchat in B2B might have somebody that's working with them that's, let's say, more of a millennial that is very comfortable with it. And you might have to build rapport with that person to get to the next level. So that's where it can be a doorway, is going to that world and speaking to them and building rapport with them. So that's where I think there could be in the bigger scheme, when you're looking at the 5.5 people and players, there might be a player that's over there, and that's a way you start to meet them.
And I'm not opposed to testing, but at least you brought this up when we were on our podcast, and it's kind of the overabundance of tools. And I just think, I'm all for testing, and I think there's something to it, but already, we're a company that offers software. There's so many software tools in the sales acceleration space. Just a word of caution out there. I think you got to be cautious of how much time you waste social selling sometimes. I'm dinking around on some of these platforms. So
are you dinking or are you selling?
Yeah, that's the key. You got to be asking yourself that. Did I say the word dink?
You did say that.
Is that a
dink.
word?
Yeah, it is now.
Well, you know what I meant.
Well, I also the one thing that we mentioned, at least on our podcast, I asked you if you like the new LinkedIn UI, and I haven't seen it. And then as soon as we're done, you're like, I just got it.
Yeah, that was ridiculous.
But I think that the thing is, the social that we knew 5 years ago is gone. The social that we knew 2 years ago is gone. The social that we know now will be gone quickly. I think you're going to see things like, it's going to change. You've got Microsoft, who just bought LinkedIn, so I'm curious to see how that's going to integrate with Dynamics. You've got Facebook that owns Oculus, so what are they going to do with VR? And is VR something that we're going to be looking at and playing around with, and having virtual meetings and with our Oculus, our Oculus Rift? What this is in 5 years, if you would ask 10 years ago,
you want to get on the top trend. So
that's true.
That's true.
Who knows?
Yeah, so it's like, who knows? The future is anybody's guess. I like those last points because you brought up my interview. So those are my favorite points of this interview so far. One final question for you guys. I know we're nearing the end of our time here, but I think you guys have some interesting research on how social is being used in prospecting. And so I'd love to hear, as we wrap up here, what you guys are seeing and any of that research that you might want to share with the listeners.
Yeah, so we just teased out a little bit of that, but we mentioned 70%. We just ran kind of a communication study, and it'll hopefully be released here in the next week or two. We looked at all sorts of different communications and said, what are people using at work? What are they using in prospecting? Interestingly, social, LinkedIn in particular, just dominated. We looked at LinkedIn versus Facebook versus Twitter. LinkedIn obviously dominated the social and B2B. 70% of people said they're using it in their prospecting. That's big. That beats out some of the other communication methods very widely. Now, interestingly enough, when we looked at usage versus effectiveness, and this is only by people reporting it, this is not by actual numbers, but we put it on kind of this 2x2 graph. And the long and short of it is LinkedIn is very highly utilized, but people are finding it to be not as effective in generating leads. And again, this is purely based on opinion. And this is, I think, where someone like you guys come in, because I believe there's power to that tool. But people aren't getting all they can out of it. They're not understanding actually how to generate some of the leads, but they know they should be using it, so they're on it. And again, I thought those were two interesting pieces that are just coming out of our research here in the next month.
I think one of the reasons why they just don't feel like they're getting enough out of it could possibly be because of the closed ecosystem that LinkedIn actually has, right? So how easy is it to actually integrate what the activity that happens on LinkedIn into all your other systems that you have, into your InsideSales.com, into your Salesforce, into all the other things that you have, all those tools that you have in your stack? It's very, very difficult because LinkedIn basically shut it down.
They shut everybody out.
I was talking to an engineer who had gone through the actual user agreement line by line to see what was allowed. And what he told me, and I haven't done this, and this is all what he told me. Essentially, if you go into LinkedIn and you write down an email that you found on LinkedIn, you have essentially violated the user agreement within LinkedIn. They have that so bolted down. Now, that doesn't mean they go after everybody who writes down email addresses, but they have it so bolted down. They have total control of it. I'd be willing to bet Gabe's BYU tickets, because they're not worth much, that if that's not the case when we integrate it into Microsoft
National
Dynamics.
Championship, baby. 1983.
Yeah, 1984. You know that most of the people listening to this podcast weren't alive.
Hey, does Utah have a national championship?
How many sports do you want us to
I
have?
just want to know if they do. It's just
in what? How many
question.
sports?
It's just a yes and no question.
Yes.
Let him hold on to the dream. Come on.
Seriously, you guys, sorry. It's bad, but it's true.
Like, these guys are never coming on our
I
podcast
don't even know
ever
what
again.
we're talking about.
We're not even going to let them download this podcast.
We are editing this. Didn't
Cut that out. My goodness.
But I guess,
Yeah, get to your point.
Microsoft, and like we're going to see, I'd be willing to bet LinkedIn integrates seamlessly with Dynamics at some point. There's no other purpose for buying LinkedIn.
Well, I want to bring up something. We had a good interview. I had an interview with John from Nimble, who's been watching it closely and real sharp guy. And he was bringing up that he's hopeful LinkedIn might open up more. And because Microsoft clearly has opened up more with their CRM, even reach with his conversations with Microsoft. So it's so funny. I usually wouldn't think a larger company being the doorway for opening up more, but we're hopeful because I think LinkedIn, I'll say it again, LinkedIn badly needs serious competition for them to be forced to play better, because right now they're the only show in town. They only have it. And I think the greatest thing that can happen is some competition start knocking at their door. So they go, oh, we have to actually make our user interface more enjoyable and useful for me. We have to play well with others. We're the leader in social selling, and then all our actions indicate we don't play well with others. It's like what in their sales technique, their sales technique approaching me is like giant interruption advertising with a huge push through email that I usually almost report from their own salespeople.
Exactly. Well, look what you guys did. You got them all mad. He's
I got him all flustered. No, but what I think you're bringing up, I'm hopeful that's it. It's necessary there.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Interesting.
Awesome.
There you have it.
There you have it.
Go ahead.
Mic drop again. So guys, this was probably at the very least one of our most entertaining episodes, right? Lots of good insights here. And on top of that, we've covered beards, zombies, dying while golfing. I mean, I would call this one a success. So for anybody who wants to connect with you guys, and for those of you who are just listening, Steve and Greg are both stroking the beards.
Totally getting awkward in here.
I hope you're getting
someday when
now.
you get big enough, Gabe, you'll be able to grow one.
Yeah, it's getting weird. Come back next year and we'll see if Gabe has one too. Yeah, and if BYU won the national championship. So for anyone who wants to connect with you guys, where can they find you online?
Yeah, you can always email us at podcast@insidesales.com. That actually goes to both of us. And love questions and comments on there. You can find both of us on LinkedIn. And then we're both on Twitter. And Gabe is found at Gabe Larsen. That's Larsen. And I'm found at Steve Eror, Eror.
Love it.
Yeah.
We'll have those in the show notes. Excuse me, Elyse. We'll have that in the show notes for people to access as well. So on linking into sales.
Yeah, very good. Just look for the show notes for episode 107.
Yeah.
And we'll do that. Guys, we really appreciate you joining us today. I'm sure we have to have you guys back on. We're gonna have to do a little collab,
Yeah.
Yep.
And thanks to Elyse, she helped make the contacts and work.
Yes.
We all take on different people we bring in, and thanks for her having it, and looking forward to hearing more of your shows and vice versa. So we now build the bridge, and we can maybe do a show on the side talking about podcasting itself.
Absolutely.
That's right. Appreciate you guys. Have a good one.
All right, you too. Thanks.
Excellent. So we're going to move on to a few other things now. Greg, would you take that? Because we've got some of our listeners that have asked some questions and some other things.
Yes, they did. We had a couple of questions actually come in. We had one actually from Christopher, Christopher Morissette, who is actually, I believe he's based here.
Thanks.
And hang on one second. We'll get that.
Yeah.
Get that muted. There we go. All right. So just for a second, Steve. So Christopher actually asked. He said the user interface with the LinkedIn user interface changing for most people. What are a couple of things you should probably do? And basically, right, one, you should probably, just for the sake of safety case, is export your LinkedIn connections.
Yes, and Greg, give them where to start on that, or we'll put it in the show notes, because that was one of his questions. Where do I go? Where's the recipe for this?
Yeah, so we actually have a video out on our YouTube channel. Go to youtube.com/linkingsales. You'll be able to find it out there. It's under the how-to playlist. But basically, you go into your connections section and then look for the export your connections from there. Then you'll basically go over, put in your CAPTCHA, and you'll get an Excel file which contains the email address, first name, last name, job title, and company. Those 5 fields, only 5. No notes, no tags, no anything like that. No additional information. Just those 5 fields. And you'll get that exported onto a CSV file, which you can then take and I guess use as you would like to. I remember LinkedIn almost tried to remove that from everybody, and everyone went ape crazy.
Yes. And that's one of them. So we'll put that link of the video in the show notes
we'll put that in there. And then in addition, print off a copy of your LinkedIn profile, all right, and actually do it in a PDF format, just so you can have the text from it. So basically take that print it off, because there might be a couple sections that may not be in your profile anymore after the conversion, and we'll talk more about that later. But definitely print that off on a PDF, which you can do by in your current profile that you have. If you go to your profile page and click on the down arrow right next to your profile picture, right next to the button there's an option to print your profile in a PDF format. So we definitely recommend doing that. Next one, we had a question who came from Alex in Nebraska. And he said, basically, this is just a little compliment. I'll just read out his note that he wrote here. He said, you had a great blog post about removing LinkedIn connections. My question for you is something that you didn't mention. What do you think about, do you think it would be viewed as petty or cause future harm to remove a connection? I have a connection that overpromises and underdelivers again and again, and is clearly not relevant to the type of person that I want to engage with. I'm looking to engage with professionally. Would my removing this particular person cause any negative feelings? Obviously, you're not them, but if a connection removed you, would you take it personally? And so, basically, my answer here is. It depends. Okay, so if you first of all, I don't know if somebody removes me as a connection. You won't know either, unless you went to that person's profile and said, "What, wasn't I connected to that person?" And that's happened actually a couple times. I thought I was connected to that person, and all of a sudden now we're second-degree connections. That's
happened to me too.
Yeah, sometimes there's glitches that happen in the LinkedIn system. Maybe they did a backup and you had a connection there, and they restored the backup and you're no longer connected. That's very possible. But I would say that if this person is going to cause harm to being in your network, then go ahead and remove that connection. Okay. But if you find that this person is not going to cause direct harm, then what I would do is put that person like at the very bottom of your network, never endorse them, never message them, don't engage with their content. Just basically you put them on a gray list. And just never really engage with them. I mean, I think that you probably, if you have more than 500 connections on LinkedIn, there are probably some connections that you have not engaged with in a very long time. You've probably not endorsed them as well. That's the kind of area that's that quasi purgatory zone that you put somebody in.
Well, I want to add 2 things to it. One, to treat it like your business community of people. Do you want to be directly associated with this person? Because when people look at you, they'll see the connection. So I'm more of a vote of disconnect from them, and be prepared for them being upset. If they are upset and find out they've just showed their colors, and it's very important to be at the level of maturity. You're okay. Someone doesn't like you. I've got a few people who don't like me for reasons I would agree with them on. I disconnected to them. So that's it. And the last thing on it is that when you remove them, there is a small chance LinkedIn will suggest you as a connection by other connections. So don't freak out over that. Just know that can occur. They won't be notified, but they might say, hey, would you like to connect to Greg Hyer again? And so that can occur. So hold your ground, build your network, trust your network, and know you are associating with these people. And it does say something about you. So you may want to disconnect.
Elyse, what do you think?
Yeah, I probably would err more on the side of Martin. Like, if it's somebody who is really not that valuable, like where it's actually hurting your reputation to be associated with them, then if they get upset that you remove them, so what? Does it matter? Yeah. Right? I mean, if it's somebody where they're at that level where they're going to bring down your network by association, it really shouldn't matter to you if they're upset if you remove them, right? It's kind of like Martin, you said, we're adults here. We have to be at the point where we're okay with people, not everybody liking us.
Yeah.
So I would say it's not worth worrying about.
This almost goes back to what Joe Rowley was saying too. Is like if you suck offline, you're going to suck online too.
It's not good either way. Yeah. There's some alignment of quality of person.
Right.
But
sure. You know what? Let's do this real quick. Steve, do you want to
add something to that?
Let me get you unmuted here 1 second.
Yeah. No, he's muted himself.
Oh, he did.
He's just a nice guy.
Well, if you want to,
go ahead.
I think you got to do it in Hangouts.
Yeah.
On your screen.
There he goes.
There we go. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. I'm especially with some of the stuff we were talking about, I've turned into a prolific unfollower on various platforms. I think stuff, if you're polluting my feed with stuff I can't see, I will do whatever I can to hide it. Probably not disconnect, but if I can hide it, I'll hide it. Just because I've got stuff, I want to see the good stuff. I don't want it to be polluted with, if you can do this math problem, then you are one of the top 3% of, I don't care about that. I want to see what the good stuff out there. So anything I can do to hide it.
The unfollow feature on Facebook has been brilliantly helpful.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. Just know we might want to make a video on that.
Yeah. We're going to have a quick little tip.
I have to say, of all the Facebook posts that I've posted, I posted something effective, unfollow feature. Where have you been all my life? And that got more likes than any picture of my dog and my kids.
That's awesome.
Especially with, people just, you're not disconnecting. You just don't have to see their constant everything.
Yeah. Another good answer to his question too.
Yeah, exactly.
Possibly unfollow.
Yeah. Possibly unfollow that person or you could eventually even block them too. He actually, this person actually came back with another question or another response because we were a third degree connection. I'm going through his profile and I don't see where he works. I don't see where he's located. And I asked him about that. I said, just to let you know, if you're in social selling, you may not want to do this. He's like, well, I'm trying to hide from my past employer. He was kind of a nut. It's like, all right, well, maybe I'll do a video to show you how to block somebody. All right. So one last thing we got here before Elise's motivation here is that we just had a quick little compliment that came in from Canada. One of our friends, some of our friends to the north, where some of our liberal friends are receding to. He basically says, this is from Badillabor. I just wanted to reach out and let you know that I've received massive value from your insights on the Social Selling Podcast. Wish you continued success.
My head's growing.
Which our egos are now been inflated. How about yours, Elyse?
It's out of control. I'm going to have to leave this chat because it's excellent now. It's excellent.
Yeah, I love comments like this. Now,
thank you.
Now, we're a really great place. While we love to receive them, where a really great place to leave these are?
On
iTunes.
On iTunes.
Yes. Which we'll talk about that in a second. But if you're listening and you've loved this episode, we would definitely love if you'd leave us a review, leave us a rating of some sort, 4 or 5 stars, maybe 5. And put it on iTunes and or Stitcher, whatever you're listening on. Leave us a review and let us know you love it.
Yep.
Elyse, let's go to your motivation.
Sure thing. Absolutely. So this is for all my salespeople out there in the trenches, hustling every week. This is something that I personally have been doing for a while that's really helped me just hit my activity quota goal every week for reach outs to prospects and clients. And so with a lot of the clients I coach and me personally, sometimes I struggle with this. You've got a target number of how many clients and prospects you want to reach out to every week. And if you're good at what you do, you probably have time scheduled in your calendar to actually do those reach outs every week. However, a lot of people don't take it any farther than that. And what you may find is you get to, let's say like Wednesday morning is going to be your time for your prospecting. And you get to Wednesday morning and you know you've got a goal of, let's say, 50 reach outs to new prospects and then some that you're following up with. And so you get there, you sit down, you open up your CRM, you're like, who should I call today? Who would be a good person for me to reach out to? And then before you know it, from you just trying to plan that prospecting time. So something that really helps me make sure that when I sit down to do my prospecting, I'm on it and I'm not wasting any time is whenever I'm doing my weekly planning session, which for me, I typically do on Sundays, I actually go through and I figure out exactly who I'm going to be calling, who I'm going to be emailing, what it's about. And I've got their name and a call time scheduled in my calendar during that prospecting time. Now, calendar looks a little bit crazy on prospecting day because it's got a whole lot going on it. However, all that you do when you've got all those names in there and what you need to call them about is it just becomes a game of as quickly as possible trying to knock those names off of your calendar. So it's something I learned from one of my coaches. It works really well to help keep me on top of my game. And it's probably one of those things where it might make a little bit more sense if it's visual. So if you guys want, I can actually send a screenshot of my calendar that we can, I don't know if we can link to that in the show notes.
Yeah, we can. We can
Okay,
have it.
cool.
Do
So
it.
I'll
We'll
send a
put it in there.
screenshot. And then guys, reach out to me on LinkedIn if you have any additional questions about how to do that. I'm happy to walk you through it.
Excellent.
So that is my tip for how to be super productive during your prospecting time.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Elyse. All right. So did you guys like this episode? Then don't keep it a secret.
That's right.
Leave us a review on iTunes or Stitcher, or let us know what, and let us know what you think
Share
about
it.
the show. Share the show
Connect.
as well. Yep.
Tweet with us.
Yep. Your
We're all
reviews
over the
actually
place.
help social selling sales pros discover the social selling podcast and become better at social selling. And that's what we want. We want better social sellers. Again, thank you very much for listening to the Social Selling Podcast by Linking into Sales. Subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play Music, YouTube, or tune in, or use your own podcast catcher, whatever you have. Visit the show notes for episode 107 to find out where you can, how you can connect with the hosts and the guests on your favorite social network. And also, don't forget, follow the show. Follow our company page on LinkedIn. Look out for Linking into Sales. And we genuinely love to get questions from listeners like yourself. So until next time, keep linking into sales.
This is Martin Brossman.
Greg Hyer.
And Elyse Archer.
Good luck.
Take care.